Welcome, everyone, to the Rocket Mortgage Media Center. As right now we have one of the great PGA pros in the United States, TonyPancake. TonyPancake has won numerous awards as the PGA Professional of the Year. And he knows how to take care of a country club, and he has been a crooked stick for over 20 years, overseeing several major championships on various venues from the Solheim Cup, USGA, PGA Professionals of America, and a whole lot more. I'd like to thank you, Tony, for coming on to today's show.
Roy, I'm doing great. Thanks. I appreciate you having me on.
Well, thank you. Crooked Stick, I'm not really going to ask you questions you probably haven't heard. Maybe I will. I pride myself on doing that. But for the audience is familiar with the course through different professional tournaments that have been held at the club. I guess when this club was first formed in 1964 by Pete and Alice Dye, this was their home country club, and it's been a laboratory for them while for all the other great courses that they've had. And it must have been awesome. I'm sure that you knew Pete fairly well. What was it like working with Pete Dye?
Yeah, it's such a blessing to have had them we're their backyard. They lived on the 18th hole here since the early 90s. And Pete was actually in the insurance business, but he grew up around golf. His dad was a golf course superintendent, so he grew up working on golf courses. He was a great player, as was Alice. In the early 60s, they spent a lot of time over in Ireland and Scotland and came up with all these great ideas for designing golf courses. And Crooked Stick was not Pete and Alice's first course, but I would say it was their first championship golf course. And as you say, we opened in 1964. We had 60 members, paid $6,000 to open the course, which is pretty amazing considering we just went through a golf course project that was over $8 million. And they were able to build it for $360,000. But having Pete around, he would walk his dog 60 every night on the golf course, and he always carried a notepad with him. And so he was constantly making notes about things he'd like to do to make the golf course better. In 2010, I went to Pete and I said, Mr. Dye, I know that, you're getting to the end of your career, and I just want to make sure that Crooked Stick is everything you'd want it to be. Is there anything you'd like to do here? Because I'd like to try to help you do that. He says, oh, that would be great. I said, well, what do you need? And he says, well, I need $8 million. And I said, $8 million? What do you need that for? He said, I'd start over. I'd learned a lot in the 50 years I've been doing this. But he always had great ideas, and he's always trying to make it better. And it was sure a blessing to have him around here, and he means so much to this club and our history.
Yeah. Is there a story on Pete Dye? You just told us one, I think, but is there one that the public really doesn't know that kind of typifies his character and that type of thing?
Well, there's so many great stories about him. The thing that I would say people don't realize about Pete is what an incredible player he was. 1957 Indiana State Amateur Champion. He won was the boys high school champion for the state of Ohio when he was growing up, and played in 2 U.S. Opens, beat Arnold Palmer in both of them. The guy was an incredible player. Even into his late 80s, he would break 80 pretty much every time that he played golf. The first round that I played with him, it was interesting. I played in the Pete Dye Cup with him. I was interviewing for my job here back in 2003, and so I got paired with Pete. We get to the first green, and he's got about a 10-footer, and he kind of stands in between his ball and the hole and shuffles up to the hole and back to it and knocks it in the cup. And then he goes to the second hole, and he's got about a 15-footer. Same thing, stands in front of the ball, shuffles up to the hole and shuffles back and knocks it in the cup. Does the same thing on 3. So we're walking down the 4th fairway, and I said, Mr. Dye, I've been playing golf for a long time. I've never seen anybody walk in their own line of putt before they hit the putt. And you're obviously knocking them all in, so you know what you're doing. I'd like to learn more about that." He says, "You golf pros are idiots." He said, "I'm reading the green. I can tell by my feet what the slope on the green is doing a lot more so than I can tell with my eyes." And so he was using aim point before aim point was even out there, and that just shows kind of his genius as to how knowledgeable he was about golf.
That is a fantastic story, and I imagine that the next time I walk in my own line when I'm playing with my friends, I'm sure that they will not understand the genius logic of Mr. Dye, but I'll
That's
tell the
right.
story at some point. I do have a very quick Pete Dye story before we turn to Crooked Stick and renovation, championships, and that sort of thing. I was down at French Lick with Dave Harner, and he told me that they had a budget to build the golf course, and they invited Pete to take a look at that great big 1,000-foot mountaintop they have there. And Pete walked around the course, around the property, and he says, he came back to him. He says, "I don't think there's a golf course here." And Dave Harner says, "Well, we have $10 million that and we think that we do." And Pete says, "I'll get started right away." So, and as you know, that is one of the great Pete Dye designs. I was taking a look at America's 100 greatest golf courses, and of course, Crooked Stick is on there. It's also one of his top designs. And I imagine that I get some golf pros, Tony, and they'll go, either they have a signature hole or they go, they're all signature holes. What is it like at Crooked Stick?
Yeah, certainly the most photographed hole that we have is the sixth hole. It's a par three over water, about 200 yards from the back tee, maybe 210. But it has a lot of Dye features. It has railroad ties around the lake. It has some railroad ties in the back left of the green. That's a nice feature that adds to the to the beauty of the hole. And then we've got a covered bridge, a red covered bridge on the right hand side. We had this majestic Chinkapin oak there, but it blew over in a storm about 8 years ago. So thankfully, Tom Doak planted another tree there, and I'm not sure I'm going to see it in my lifetime to where it looks as good as the original one did, but I'm sure that maybe my kids or grandkids are going to enjoy that. But the sixth hole is certainly a photograph, most photographed hole. The 18th hole gets a lot of attention here. We have our green committee suggestion box in the middle of the lake, so you've probably seen that picture. But it's very typical of a finishing hole for Pete. It's if you think a lot of his golf courses, either 9 and 18 come in around a lake. In our case, it's 10 goes out and 18 comes in. So that penalty area is on the entire right-hand side of the finishing hole, which makes it a lot of fun for sure.
Yeah, you mentioned a red covered bridge. I was talking to the people at Holiday Farms, and I had like a video view. The Mac played their championship there this year, and they have a red covered bridge. And you mentioned that, and I imagine that is that a staple at more than 2 or 3 of his courses, or did I happen to find out about the 2 courses he has it?
Yeah, I don't know of any other courses other than here on Holiday Farms that have that feature. And now one other feature he has here that you will see at other Dye courses is he has a railroad car bridge here as well. And that's on the 17th hole, going from 17 green to 18 tee. So you'll definitely see that. And I think that's one of the things he picked up when he was over in Ireland and Scotland, looking at those golf courses in the early 60s.
Now, taking a look, Tom Doak did come out and kind of tweak things. It's kind of hard to believe that anybody would tweak a Pete Dye course, but a lot of golfers have come to learn, or you will through this video, that golf courses do change over time. Trees grow, sometimes greens get off, and these days you can look at satellites to get things back on track. And I imagine that Tom Doak just kind of reconfigured it to make sure Pete Dye's dream is still in effect.
Yeah, we went through a very exhaustive search trying to figure out who's going to be our next golf course architect slash consultant for, because our number one asset here is our golf course, and we want it to be a Pete Dye golf course for perpetuity. So we interviewed, I would say, the best of the best, and the things that stood out with Tom. Number one, he worked on this property with Pete before the 1991 PGA Championship, so he was very familiar with the course. Obviously, had a great relationship with the Dyes. And one of the things that Tom said to me early on is I'm not sure I want to do this because I have so much respect for Pete and Alice. But if I do elect to do it, I insist that you don't put my name on it. And just the level of respect he had for Pete and Alice, I knew he was going to be our guy. And when I said, Tom, we'd like for you to do it, he said, you know what, I just don't feel, I don't feel like I can do it. And I'd like for you to find somebody else. So I said, well, listen, I want you to take a couple days to think about it. And I feel like Pete would think you were the perfect guy, to manage this course for the next 20 or 30 years. So I called him back 2 days later, and he said, I've decided to do it because I don't want somebody else to screw up what Pete created here. And if you looked at the course before and after Tom's work, you would say it looks pretty much the same. He made some nice adjustments, but he didn't change the routing of any holes. We gave him a pretty difficult job. We said we want this course to be playable for members, but occasionally, every 5 or 6 years, when we would have a national championship, we want to be able to make it really challenging for the best players in the world. And those two things kind of go against each other. But Tom did a phenomenal job of that. He moved some bunkers around, taking them out of play for members, but putting them more in play for championship style golfers. He eliminated some bunkers. He added some, but the main thing that he did was created some more hole locations for us. Mm-hmm. One other thing I'd love to share about our experience with Tom, he came to me early on in the process and he said, what do you keep your greens rolling at? And I said, well, they generally roll, I'd say around 11 to 11.5. He said, how do you feel about 9.5? And I just kind of chuckled and I said, I don't think that's going to go over very well with our membership. And he said, well, we could really have some really interesting greens here if you'd let me have them at 9.5, keep them at 9.5. So, we see that a lot in golf. Some of the best courses in the world, you saw that at Shinnecock. I mean, those courses were built when greens were rolling 8.5, 9, 9.5. And now the greens, you get them fast at 11.5, 12. They're just almost too severe, certainly for daily membership play. And I don't think Tom was able to do everything he wanted on the greens because of the speed that we keep him, but we're so pleased with the work that he did and how it turned out.
So you did settle on the 9.5 that he suggested?
No, we did not. I told him we'd probably be closer to that 11 and 11.5 range. So okay. They don't have quite as much character as he would like to see, but again, I think he found a really good balance in that, and tried to keep the original concepts that Pete had. And so again, like I say, we couldn't be more pleased with the result.
Now, the USGA and the PGA, they have, I know that a lot of courses that are in their championship rotation, they got the drainage going on. I know that Tom did some work with that. Did they ask the greens, where they have the fans underneath and, the drainage, was that to their specification, or is that something that the members wanted all along?
Yeah, they did not ask us to do any of that. And we're blessed to have an incredible golf course superintendent here. Jake Gargas is his name. He's been with us for over 15 years now, and Jake does a phenomenal job for us. And he recognizes the importance of being able to control the water on the greens. So we've been in the last 15 years, he's put in, I think, 18 miles worth of drainage underneath the greens, fairways, tees. This golf course drains so quickly now, it's incredible. And we like it to play firm and fast. And that was one of the objectives with this project, is to make sure the greens really drain well. And so we did add the sub-air capability. And we mostly did that for, the occasional storm that would affect the playability of the course. But then also when we do host a championship, if we need to really get those greens dried out quickly, we now have the ability to do that. And since we were rebuilding them from the ground up, it just was the right time to do that. And it made sense for the club to incorporate that into the project.
Yeah, I think combining that probably saved you a lot of money for something you would have had to go back and do it probably anyway. So it seems like you probably saved a lot of money and probably did a great job. And like you say, it's going to make your course last even longer before somebody has to come through there again. One of the things that I've noticed with the USGA, for a long time, the women didn't play many of the same courses the men did in their rotation of championships, but that's certainly changed, and I see that's changed at Crooked Stick. We'll talk about the PGA Championship in a minute, but you've had the 1993 U.S. Women's Open. You've had the Solheim Cup at your club, as well as some men's championships. And I imagine that you guys are probably on a short list for both men's and women's championships. And I imagine that the membership likes having both the men and the women there, and you've had the U.S. Seniors, you've had the PGA Championship. I imagine your philosophy is you'd like to host as many as you can if it makes sense.
Yeah, we're trying to find that balance between members' access to their golf course and the ability to play the course. And then also when you host a national championship, there's volunteers that have to be recruited. There's a lot of preparation. In some cases, you're selling tickets and hospitality. So for a community the size of Indianapolis, it doesn't make sense for us to do it every year. So every 5 or 6 years probably is about the sweet spot for the club. When I came in 2004, we had a really, we hadn't hosted an event since the 93 Women's Open. And then we did the 05 Solheim Cup, 07 Women's AM, 09 Senior Open, 12 and 16 BMW. So in a pretty short stretch, we hosted a lot of events. That's probably more than we'll do going forward. And, again, we're trying to find the sweet spot that makes sense for us. But we certainly want to entertain, all types of golfers, championship events. And it makes sense with Alice and her experience as a player. I mean, Alice won the Indiana State Amateur Championship 11 times. She was a Curtis Cup player, 2 national USGA championships. She was an incredible player. And so it makes sense for us to host women's events here. We currently only have the 2028 Senior Open. That's the only thing that we've committed to at this point. But I wouldn't be surprised for us to take a look at a women's U.S. Open at some point down the road. And I do think the USGA would think it was a very viable site for us to do that here. And Roy, I also wanted to mention that when the Dyes passed away in 2018 and 2019, we really thought long and hard about, how do you perpetuate the legacy of these two individuals that, we know about their golf courses, but they were incredible people, and they did so much for the game of golf outside of designing golf courses. And we came up with this idea of hosting an annual national junior championship where we invite the top junior players from around the world to come and play in a junior championship here. We started in 2020, so we just completed the 2026 event. We've had 7 of them now. The first year we had 80 applicants. This year we had over 450. We've had 2 former players in our event have gone on to be PGA Tour winners. We'll get an LPGA winner here pretty soon. But, when you educate the elite players in the world about who Pete and Alice Dye were, we think that's going to do a lot for perpetuating their legacy, not only their legacy here at Crooked Stick, but their legacy to what they did for the game of golf around the world.
I did not know that you hosted this junior championship. I cover a lot of college golf. I'm doing the Folds of Honor. I was lucky enough to have an interview with Dan Rooney just the other day, Colonel Rooney, and he's on my preview show for the Ally Challenge. And I would love, if I'm invited and know the date, for the next year's championship. I would love to come there and come there for a couple of days and talk to some of the players, and because junior golf is the future, and these players now are so incredible that it's amazing. And I think it would be an honor to come out to there, Mr. Tony.
Well, we'd love to have you. Our date has been the first Monday and Tuesday in June, so it'll be right after Memorial Day next year, and we play a practice round on Sunday, 36 holes on Monday, 18 on Tuesday. We're trying to give a lot of the collegiate coaches come out and watch. They want to see how the players do in that 36-18 format. And then we're also trying to run it to where it is a junior tournament, but we want it to feel like a tour event as well. The players are allowed to have caddies for that event, and we have the live scoring, the big scoreboards, and we really try to make it feel like a major championship.
Well, it sounds like when you guys do get involved, you do things right for sure. And I imagine the USJ they probably ask you more than you can accept. I would imagine you're on the short list for a lot of different events. And is that true or no?
Well, we have a great relationship with the USGA, and we're constantly in conversations with them about what events that might be a good fit here at Crooked Stick, and what timing those would fit. I do love the way the USGA is trying to really go to these what I would call iconic venues for their championships, and occasionally they're going to go to new golf courses, and that'll be terrific. I was at the Valhalla Golf Club when they first hosted the PGA Championship, and it was great that they would consider a new course, and the USGA occasionally does that. But when you go to an iconic venue, like for the Women's US Open this year at Riviera, I mean, that added so much to the credibility of that championship, and the players are still talking about that. So,
everybody. TonyPancake, PGA professional, Crooked Stick Golf Course in Carmel, Indiana, and one of the great golf courses, one of the 100 greatest in the United States. And you also have a very much a top-notch PGA professional that takes care of the membership. I think I saw in your bio to be a superhero, every day at your golf course. Is that attributed to you?
Well, I love taking care of people, and I love being a part of this club. If you love golf, Crooked Stick is a special place, and we have a limited membership here, but our members are passionate about the game. They're very sophisticated golfers, and we're blessed to have a great golf course thanks to the Dyes that's in excellent condition. But, we also, as a staff, really need to do our best every day to take care of them and make sure they're enjoying their time out here. So it's an honor to serve this club, and sure been grateful for my time here.
All right. Thank you, Tony, for your time and going through the history and the modern amenities of the golf course itself and some of the future tournaments that are coming up. Thank you, Tony.
You're welcome, Roy. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Looks like he's going to knock it down to the left. He's 85 yards. Two looks. As it gets tighter, how many looks does he take? He took one right there. but he'll take 5 on the hole.
Daly makes bogey, drops back to -10, and his lead shrinks to 2.
Now back to the tee.